Hi, this is Dr. Scott, and today we're going to get into the very interesting conversation. This goes into the past, and some of you guys go, why aren't you talking about this? Sorry. This is Operation Warp Speed. Now, I asked my social media guy to create there are three main areas that we need to see in the EBS. It's COVID. We need to see the COVID issue because it's killed as many as 10 to 20 million people, worldwide. Almost spit on myself. And then we have the election fraud issues, and we also have the child trafficking. Okay. It's just one area I don't get into as much. Other people definitely do. They do a better job than I ever have done. Okay. So, what we're going to deal with here is I couldn't load up all the videos all at once. I have to like unload these videos. I have to load some and then load up some more. So it takes a little time to do this. So okay. Now, COVID starts around what, March, February, March, kind of thing of 2020. Now, funny thing is, I had talked to people at American Airlines, and there is a hub in American Airlines in the Tulsa area, and there were people that said that there was some weird flu thing that happened in, and I'm gonna get the kind of date wrong, like February, or excuse me, like December-ish of 2019, and they were like, and a whole bunch of people got sick all at once. So we know there was a flu type of thing that occurred, and again, when you talk about this little moronic thing that will actually only do about 6 particles, 0.6, whereas the virus is 6 times smaller than even the best mask can ever do, which tells you how useless and worthless it is. But the mind virus is way stronger than any mask can ever be on these people. Okay? So, but here's what they actually wanted to accomplish. Now, I had to show just a clip of this so that you had a clue of this. But this is from the movie Contagion, and I want to say it's 2013. You guys can go watch it. But this is what they wanted to accomplish. Okay, and in the movie Contagion, you have all the main actors, and it was when the virus comes out, it was just wiping the brain out, and so it was a real interesting virus. It was people were dying in, I mean, hours to a couple days, and they were frothing at the mouth. This is what they wanted. It never manifested its way into that. Okay. And there was so many things that messed with their brain as they did that. Okay. See, what they were hoping for is that kind of level of death and destruction in the people. It didn't come on that way, which tells you part of the military the military operation that they were hoping for, and then they kept trying to derivate this disease to mess with it so that it would create more and more fear, and they just never got it to go that way.
One is, do people with natural immunity to COVID need a vaccine? And is there any increased risk of the natural immune system individuals having an adverse reaction to the vaccine?
Natural immunity is more robust than vaccine immunity. There's a study from the original SARS back in 2002. The people that survived that first SARS, they've looked at them 17 years later, and they showed robust immunity still to SARS-CoV-1 17 years later. Historically, we've always known that natural immunity tends to last a lifetime, i.e. the measles, natural immunity will last a lifetime. So no, I don't believe there's any need to vaccinate someone who's already acquired natural immunity.
You see, this is the kind of thing they didn't want to hear. They didn't want you to know, these natural immunity conversations. So they were covering up over and over these kinds of just straightforward conversations. We talked about this last time. If you listen to the first one on excuse me, on masks, and the fakery of masks, and the mental, the mind virus that came on on so many people, that you could wear the mask up at 6 feet, but you could take it off to eat, and then put it up and then take it off, and put it up and take it off, and as soon as you sit down, the virus doesn't hit you. Like, come on, make it make sense, kind of stuff, right? And yet people, like, it just seemed normal to people. They were talking, excuse me, they were talking about new normals. That isn't new normal. That is stupid stuff, right? And yet we allowed people like Gavin Newsom to do this to skating parks, outside parks. You want kids and adults to be outside on the areas like this, to have the sunlight, and yet we allowed, I'm gonna mute this, but basically they were covering up skate parks. Like, how sick is that circumstance? And they didn't need to put that much sand in there just to mess up the park, because then the kids couldn't do it at all. I mean, how gross is that? They were arresting people if they were out there. This is the stupidity of the systems with that. And because this is what they expected people to actually do. Sorry, it's taking a little time for that to load. Hopefully that will show. See, they wanted you to have to come in, so, they got all that little tape and set up. This is what I had to do. I've done this, I would tape, setups here. I would have to, put this kind of thing on when I would go to burn units, right? And, you had to really protect. You're trying to, get all of that capability so that you wouldn't, infect the other person. But specifically when I was dealing with burn unit kind of things, man, you spit on a person, I mean, they have no skin layers at that time. But this is only a BSL-2, sometimes depends on what that one would be. That would be what you might do for a BSL-3 kind of labs. You really need a BSL-4 where you would have air kind of covers with that kind of thing too. You see, none of that stuff really, I mean, that sort of works depending upon the circumstance. Now, you put tape over your nose because it kind of hurts after a while utilizing that stuff too. This is what you actually do. And yet, an idiot mask kind of had, people doing this all the time, right? And no one ever talked about that one. If before 2020, if I ever saw someone who had a mask, someone like me who's been trained in masks, and if I ever saw someone like this, I'd be like, what are you doing? Put your mask up here. And if I ever saw him doing this, I'd be like, what are you doing there? It's not fitting correctly, right? Now, this mask sort of does fit correctly overall, but every time someone does this, it starts messing with, I'm sorry, it's in my eyes now. It starts messing with it, right? And as soon as you start doing this and you start being down, it loses the seal. We say, seal integrity kind of thing. Come on. Everything is wrong about this kind of thing. But if you noticed inside of this, they were doing gloves, they're doing several layers of gloves. No one talked about gloves in this whole thing. Why was that not discussed in here? And then we actually have the craziness of the PCR testings, right? And so I actually had an event in Portland area, and I canceled it because here's what they wanted me to do. That is, I would check into the hotel. There was, and it was an audiology event, and I would check in the hotel. I had to stick the idiot thing up my nose, and prove that I was negative. And I was like, well, first off, I'm not going to do that. Well, what if I'm positive? Well, then I have to stay in the room. Yeah, but then I would have to stay in the room even past my, it's a 5 day to 2 week time frame. I mean, I'm flying in for a 3 or 4 day, I can't remember, it's like a 3 or 4 day event. So I wouldn't even be allowed to fly out. What if I don't want to take that? Well, you have to do that. I said, why do I have to do that? Here's where it gets interesting with this kind of stuff. They said it was mandated. And this is where I kind of got really off with HR people. And I said, mandates. Do you understand what a mandate is versus a law? And this is the first time, and they started getting really mad at me. These are people, and especially in the Portland area, who were all real heavy lefties, right? And so you had the cities who were coming up with mandates. Now, if they wanted to pass the law, they could have passed a law all the way through their state senates, their House and their Senate, and let their idiot governor at the time go ahead and pass it. Now, here's the other thing. The mayor of Portland, and which if you know anything about Portland, there's Vancouver that sits right beside it of Washington. So that would also make it interesting because you can go over the city, over the city limits up into Vancouver and do the same thing. And I mean, it's like over the river kind of thing, right? So it's pretty funny on that kind of stuff. And yet they never did that. And I always say mandates have no legal capability. Mandates are policy and procedure capabilities. For instance, let's say that Scott, as a business owner, requires a mandate. I don't even have my badge with me. So I have badges that I mandate my staff to wear. Now, I'm not hard and fast on this, but I like it when my staff members, I like it when my staff members wear their badge so they can kind of, people, because they don't know who it is, right? And so I have an old staff member, looks like some of my new staff members, and then, well, Dr. Sameo, and I'm like, no, she doesn't work here anymore. And it's helpful if you know who have the badge, right? So it's just a little tiny purple badge. So that is called a mandate or a policy procedure thing. So it's a very simple kind of thing. I'm not asking them to do something illegal or something gross or anything. They're just wearing a magnetic kind of thing. It's not harmful or anything. So they all just wear it, right? No big deal. I let them wear scrubs. I pay for the scrubs, right? And they wear this little thing. That's called a mandate. Okay. What if someone doesn't want to do the mandate? Well, then they don't want to work for me. Okay. So if you choose not to go along with a mandate, you decide you don't want to work for that company. That's how mandates work. Now, a city government, a state government, or a federal government has no right. They can put a mandate in. But a religious organization or a private citizen can go, I'm not doing that. I mean, they can put it out there. And if a group of people, let's just use the COVID mandate. And I know I'm kind of, pontificating a little bit here, but I want you to understand mandates. But a group of people can say, hey, listen, for instance, they made mandates that you can't gather more than X number of people, 50 people in a church. And they would do this all the time, right? And they say, well, 50 people, 100 people. And now if that particular group decided to agree with it, they're agreeing with the mandate, which means they put themselves underneath the mandate capability. But the church has every right to say, screw that. I'm not doing that. I don't have to actually do that mandate. And there is no legal capability for a police to go in and arrest them. Because if the police do arrest them, that church can actually sue the police department and win a big old nasty lawsuit. And here's the other funny thing. Sheriffs are actually the ones that actually drive backward to the Constitution. They're actually responsive to the Constitution. See, this is why this kind of changed the stuff up. And so we were seeing a real tug and pull because we were talking about these things called conspiracy theories, right? So this all came up with this PCR tests of shoving something so deep in your nose. And I'm like, what in the flock was that? And I'm like, sorry, excuse me, some people don't like that. Sorry, take that back. What in the world was that idiotic thing? And why am I shoving it so far in my nose? I mean, it's going up in the meningeal layer. Give me a break, right?
Are receiving those free government-issued at-home COVID tests. The extraction tube in many of the kits includes a chemical that can be harmful or even deadly. It's colorless, tasteless, odorless. It's a powder that's found in things like airbags and pest control solutions. Maya Belay from our Cleveland station checks in with Poison Control for a look at the potential dangers.
Ohio poison control centers are sounding the alarm surrounding a liquid substance called sodium azide, found in some at-home COVID testing kits that could be toxic to children as well as adults if used incorrectly.
Our toxicology community has been both surprised that this was the ingredient in some of the kits and also concerned. We have seen exposures in all age groups.
The Drug and Poison Information Center at Cincinnati Children's Hospital reports an increase in calls to their hotline related to accidental exposure to the substance. So far, nearly 40 exposures were reported there, and the problem is nationwide.
We are one of 55 poison control centers, and nationwide, other poison centers have been reporting a similar finding, and there have been more than a couple of hundred exposures nationwide to sodium azide in test kits.
Doctors advise parents to keep the kids out of reach of children, and when testing children for COVID at home, to make sure they are supervised in order to avoid any adverse side effects from exposure.
See, that's how ridiculous it is. You don't have to see. You guys get it. By the way, they were in all of the test kits. There was so much ridiculous. Just understand everything in an airbag. When an airbag comes out, it's got all these chemicals in there. And that's what was in those things, and worse. It's a carcinogenic. What? I can't tell you how many people have gotten the test of COVID, even if they haven't gotten the vaccine. Well, guess what? You were vaccinated if you've done this. And some people have had the test so many more times than they've ever been vaccinated, right? You've been vaccinated on top of that. You've been boosted and vaccinated over and over and over again, right? Okay. Let's show you another one. This one really made me mad. This was not in America. I'm pretty darn sure of this one here, but watch this one.
Alan writes, I therefore offer you all a very warm welcome as we unite in love and friendship to...
You have to put the chair back, I'm afraid. You can't move the chair to yourself.
You have to be 6 feet apart. Watch this again. This is
Alan writes, I therefore offer you all a very warm welcome as we unite in love and friendship to...
Here's part of the mandate stuff. I just said, oh, get out of here. And yet, but here's the problem with that. That place is creating the mandate, and these people had no choice. So I would have said, we're going outside. And see, it was the docile nature of people doing this kind of stuff. And here's the problem here. We have media that was allowing it, because we have first HCQ, a drug promoted by Trump, linked to 17,000 deaths. Oh, well, wait a second. A long while later, they never happened. Huh. They never happened. Right. Gotcha. Media then throws up their little thing, too.
Drugs for animals and horse.
And people telling them to.
Oh, my God.
What person You know, you talk about like, cancel culture and who to shame. Ivermectin, a dewormer, really?
They are shaming themselves. No one has to shame them. They're shaming themselves.
No, they need to
by
be shamed.
doing that. Yeah.
They need to be called out and shamed,
Yeah.
brother. I am taking a, what do they call it? Like a regular dose, whatever. They're trying to build up of ivermectin. Ivermectin was a boogeyman early on in COVID.
You couldn't talk about it.
That was wrong. We were given bad information about ivermectin. The real question is why?
You were given wrong information about it? Who gave you the wrong information? And why did you even put it out there? You see, these are part of the crimes against humanity, the 13818 kind of stuff. These are the sickos that have to go down. Check this one out.
Anything that was in any way contradictory or even skeptical of what the government was, crazy person. You were nuts. You took a bunch of tinfoil and you put it on your head and you communicated with Mark. I mean, seriously. And now we're discovering that a lot of the stuff of what these so-called conspiracy theorists had to say was actually freaking true.
The best part about COVID was I think it made all of us a lot smarter. And now...
I know it's hard to see, but basically what they're saying is everything about the conspiracy theories about COVID made a lot of people a lot smarter. No, it showed off the stupid of this. Now, here's where I'm going to have to mute this because it's got music in the middle of this. But I want you to understand what hospitals are. Hospitals are some of the busiest places in the planet. If you haven't worked in a hospital, I used to work in a hospital. I did my internship at University of Denver. I mean, we never got a break. I mean, I saw, patients every 5 minutes. I worked in an ear, nose, and throat clinic. And I mean, there were stacks of patients that every single day that I would see. And I mean, we were always behind by 2 hours. And they would, you don't understand what happens in scheduling. Like, for instance, in most of these things in ear clinics, it's no different that in an ER. It's no different in any other kind of area. Sorry, my shoulder's kind of bugging me. So for instance, what they would do is that they would schedule a new ear audio. This is what we would call it, for 30 minutes. Well, it doesn't take 30 minutes to do that. It's actually a 45 minutes to hour appointment. But because they wanted to get enough of them in, the patient could be waiting 2 hours before they even get seen. And even after they get seen, they're moved to different rooms over and over again, to different places, to the audiologist, back to the waiting room, and then back to the nurse's station, back to another area before they see the ear, nose, and throat physician, who says, oh, well, it's just, you need to go see the audiologist again, and then back here. And then by the time they walk out, they're totally, they're hungry and frustrated with that too. And, it's a harried kind of response, and hair's, setting up an end. This is why when I started to see these kinds of videos, it didn't make sense to me. It kind of was like, what? When I was seeing this stuff here, that people, that hospital workers around the world were coming together. Now I want you to think about this for a second. They were practicing moronic dance moves with their COVID masks on, supposedly with tens of thousands up to millions of people dying and dancing. And I'm like, something's so wrong, I don't even know how to explain it. And back here, by the way, why are we having dead people? Why are we making fun of dead people here? COVID dead people, and we're angels. And you're like, you're doing what? And they're thinking of themselves as heroes. Now, did they have, and they have so much time to do this. And by the way, they don't even have their masks on, they're touching, and there are all kinds of other stuff. So there's all kinds of idiot things going on in here as well, here too. And you're going, and this is not just one different place, this is a whole bunch of different places of the same kind of stuff. And so you have a whole bunch of different facilities that are allowing this. And I'm like, wait, what? How many different places are saying this is an okay thing to do? And the reality is, I think we can show you this part here, that there was no one in most of these facilities. No one was showing up for the COVID thing because no one was really sick in comparison to the number of people that was really happening. You're like, what? Huh? But you were hearing a different story with that kind of stuff too. This is the kind of thing you got to say, wait a second. Tells you there is a military operation when this kind of moronic nature of hospitals doing disgusting situations in front of your face, right? And then you had them do this. I'm muted because it's not in our language. But now we have to have directors showing off, and we're doing this kind of thing. This wasn't a movie. This is how they wanted to set it all up. So they had to do a settings. This is, I mean, I've seen this kind of track kind of work with commercials, right? But this is how they wanted to be able to portray it. This is what the cabal was trying to do. Guys, this is where we were going with that too. Okay, so let me show you, let's show you how gross this whole thing is. So I'm gonna load each one of these here. So it takes me a second to do. Sorry, it takes a little bit to do each one of these parts because it wouldn't let me load it here. This is the part that really bothers me. This is in China in 2020. So they would lock you up if they found if you were positive with COVID. This is what they really wanted around the world. How sick is that? This is their dreamland of what they wanted to accomplish. And what you have to see is actually this. This is what the COVID kit tests actually were. There was a patent. The patent was taken out in 2015. And you guys, some of you guys know that. Here's a fascinating little meme that I saw that I thought was some really kind of cool point here. The virus can only travel 6 feet. It cannot travel 6.1 or greater. It cannot live on all surfaces except for anything that comes in the mail from Amazon. It does not live in Target, Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, or any grocery store. It's harmless in protests, riots, and looting. It is only deadly. It is only deadly in bars, restaurants, and small businesses. Hair salons. It cannot live on your food as long as you get it to go. Yep. Got it. And yet we still have people who look at this. And by the way, We still have people that look at me and say that I am, an idiot conspiracy theorist, right? And this is why, one of the reasons why I was kicked off of Facebook, because my community, and this is really when I left Facebook, because these AIDS was patented, H1N1 was patented, Ebola was patented, swine flu was patented, and so was coronavirus. It was patented. These were all patented. And your post did not follow community standards. This was my last basic point this is when I left Facebook. By the way, if you think you're following me on Facebook or seeing me on Facebook, you are not. I haven't been on Facebook since 2021. I don't remember when in 2021. I haven't been anywhere near them. Okay. I got to show you some more. So I have to load each one of these because I had to pull them up here in the way that they allowed me to do that here. So sorry. You see, wait until everyone finds out that the hospitals nationwide murdered people simply to collect COVID subsidies. There are so many subsidy points that were happening that they had massive numbers of money. They were making money hand over fist in this kind of thing. And personally, as an audiologist, I was not going to be a part of anything that they did with that kind of situation. I was like, no, I will not do it. I will not I was going to call them out in every way, shape, and form with that. Okay, sorry. Let me bring that up on the screen. Let me show you. Excuse me. And here's part of the thing that you guys also need to see here. Is who actually was supporting this. It's the media corporations with that too. Excuse me. Sorry, not pulling that off there. It's the corporations are all owned, right? They're all owned together. They're all set up. They're in the same line. They're all set up in here with that. Okay. But here's the funny thing. There were several videos that started to show up here. Let me kind of remove these here and I can show it to you a little bit more easily without having to have problems here. So let me show you something when Fauci and I think it was one of the mayors started to walk around. I caught this video and I wanted to show you this one. This one, it startled Fauci.
People in America are not settled with the information that's been given to us right now. So I'm not going to be lining up taking a shot or a vaccination for something that wasn't clear in the first place. And then you all create a shot in miraculous time. It takes years to create vaccination.
Well, it used to take years.
Okay, it used to. You know
how many years were invested in this approach? About 20 years of science to get us to be able to do it.
20 years is not enough. And 9 months.
20 years to do it. Why would he bring up the point of 20 years? This is only like in 2021 when they were bringing up the vaccination kind of thing, and we'll talk about that one in the next time frame. But why would idiot Fauci bring up that conversation? And he says that it takes 20 years. When was COVID developed? Okay, let's go backward a little bit because I want you to see there.
Okay,
you know how many years were invested in this approach? About 20 years of science to get us to be able to do it.
20 years is not enough. And 9 months is definitely not enough for nobody to be taking no vaccination that you all came up with.
The only reason I'm talking to you right now, as close as we are, is that I've been vaccinated.
Right.
But if it allows thousands of people like you don't get vaccinated, you're going to let this virus continue to percolate in this country and in this world.
Something like the common flu then, right?
And it's
much more serious than the flu.
Well, the flu kills a lot of people annually too.
You know how many people died of the flu the last year? I mean, not this year, virtually none, but the previous year, About 20 to 30,000. You know, how many people have died from COVID-19 in the United States? 600,000 Americans.
Well, the number that you all giving that died, that's once again, that's you all's number.
You gonna pass?
Yeah, definitely.
right.
Because when you start talking about paying people to get vaccinated, when you start talking about incentivizing things to get people vaccinated, there's something else going on with that. Something else going on.
It is something going on with
something
it.
else.
You're right. But I'm glad millions of people like me and most everybody here didn't get an. You know what their incentive was? Protecting their health and protecting the city. But
So look at this. Guy doesn't even wear his mask. This guy's wearing a mask. Why didn't you have a mask on? If you believe in this whole thing, why didn't you got your mask on? Give me a break.
I won't keep you anymore.
It's okay, because my incentive, y'all campaign is about fear. It's about inciting fear in people. You all attack people with fear. That's what this pandemic is. It's a fear. It's fear, this pandemic. That's all it is.
My favorite guy ever. That dude, this tore up an idiot physician who can't deal with it. Fauci is a complete moron when it comes to truth. Okay. The reality that you have to understand is this, is that it was a complete distraction.
The phenomenal change that's come about in the last 2-3 years is there probably isn't a child over the age of 6 that isn't deeply concerned about climate change. I mean, there were reports in the past, but now the focus of the world are on those problems, whether it's droughts, whether it's storms, whether it's the seaside being ruined, just undermining life.
Everything. And in a way, Corona has slightly, I'm afraid, eclipsed the importance of this conversation. No one's saying Corona isn't incredibly devastating, but actually we do need to think long term about the planet.
Yeah, and it's a distraction, well, more than a distraction, it's a tragedy.
And they're reminding you that Corona is a distraction. The whole point of this whole thing was that it was a distraction. And once you see that nature, that it was absolutely known as a distraction, then you kind of understand why we say, and More News has got gorgeous kinds of points, that Deborah Birx is guilty of a rebellion, insurrection, seditious conspiracy. Fauci, probably worse than this, than what you're going to see here in a second. Let me bring this one up here. Crimes against humanity, which probably means, what you would imagine it means. Some people believe this. Back in 1984, working assiduously to come up with a solution to save us all from overpopulated Earth. In fact, Fauci was so awesome at his job that he made the point man. He was the point man for the United States for HIV, SARS, MERS, Ebola, and COVID. Why was he? Because he's that sick of a pig. And to leave you with this one point, it was a coordinated effort. The reality that you have to understand is the Mockingbird media pushed all of their chips in on this. When you see all of these people and what they were trying to accomplish here, COVID was a portion of what they were trying to do. But what the military did is said, fine, you do your thing, because they couldn't stop them doing all of their stupidity and their sickness. But they were the point is that they were taking out all of the nature of the cabal, the underground nature. That's what Space Force is about. Now, by the way, by the time you watch this is already going to be on, but I'm going to be having Dave with News Treason on, and you're going to get to see him. And if you haven't gone back and watched him, Dave and News Treason is going to talk about Epstein list. By the way, the Epstein list is going to drop. Nassar is going to happen. All this stuff is going to occur. You guys just got to be calm. What COVID was is this. It was a cover for all of the crazy things so that we could take them out, show the world the crimes against humanity, so that we could say, you know what, we need to be done with them and have a new set of government. Thanks so much.